By a few weeks after one quiet Friday family dinner, their party plans had collapsed. The decorations were back in boxes, and a luxury SUV was rolling onto a lender's flatbed after a missed payment and a contract violation. The only thing they could not take back was my signature. I am Madison Green, 32, Vice President of Marketing in New York City. I manage brands that spend budgets with the word multi in front of them. After my divorce, I kept two places: a small condo in Manhattan where my shoes live under a bench and my blender sings before sunrise, and a stone estate in Bedford, Westchester, where the lawn breathes and the trees feel old enough to vote. I used to think I understood family obligation. I am the responsible one, the color coder, the receipt saver. My younger sister Emma is the golden child, the charmer, the soft landing. When there was a mess, I was capable and she was creative. Guess which word buys paper towels? For years I paid because I could. I am not bragging. I am doing the math out loud. About 40% out of my take-home walked out the door each month. Roughly $12,000 keeping other people's lives from wobbling. An aunt's emergency that turned into an Italian leather sectional. An uncle's car repair that smelled like a new bass boat. $800 each month for Emma because the podcast was about to break through. Phone plans, add-on cards, late-night Cash App pings that came with the words, "Please do not be mad." Here is what they did not know. I document everything. Not to trap people. To remember clearly. It is my job. Pattern recognition with a human heart. I keep clean logs. I save screenshots. I record important conversations. I tag emails. I make timelines because memory is romantic and paper is honest. If you have ever been the family wallet, if you have ever bought peace with a transfer and then eaten dinner alone, tell me where you are watching from. Tell me what your breaking point looked like. I see you. Let me set the stage so the rest makes sense. There were two separate events. First, a small Friday family dinner at my Bedford house. Casual, intimate, just enough people to fill a table and clink glasses. That is where I overheard the sentence that changed everything. Weeks later was the engagement bash they tried to stage at the same house. Bigger. Vendors. A real budget. Those are not the same night. Keeping that clear will matter. I kept the Bedford estate after the divorce because I loved it and because my parents cried when I mentioned selling. My mother said every family needs a home base. She said traditions matter more than headlines. She said she would help host. She did not offer to help pay. I covered the condo mortgage in the city and the taxes and maintenance on the house upstate. I told myself it was my choice because it was. Choice feels different when everyone else quietly chooses for you. Looking back, the hints lined up like runway lights. My mother's soft voice whenever she said family. My father's half jokes about not selling the house because holidays need a backdrop. The nickname walking ATM that we all pretended was a joke. I laughed until the laugh sounded like a cough. I am planting 3 clean breadcrumbs now because they will pay off later. 1, a 6-minute voice memo from that small Friday family dinner. 2 months of group chat screenshots where I am the punchline. 3 bank logs and alerts that flag a credit application I did not file. I did not know those threads would tie the bow. Not yet. But I kept them because paper is honest and I was done letting memory do all the work. I did not become the family wallet in one afternoon. It happened one favor at a time, one story at a time, one soft, "Please can you help me" at a time. Looking back now, the pattern is so clean I could graph it. I put myself through school while Emma got help. I took the first job that offered health insurance. I learned to stretch a dollar until it squeaked. The family loved that version of me, the scrappy one, the capable one. When my salary grew, the family story changed shape. You can help more now, right? You will not even feel it right. I wanted to believe them. I wanted to be generous and unbothered. Here is the math because the math matters. For 2 to 3 years, about 40% of my take-home walked out of my accounts every month. Roughly $12,000 again and again presented as kindness and framed as duty. An aunt needed emergency dental work that transformed into an Italian leather sectional for $9,600. An uncle needed to fix an engine and soon there was a sparkling bass boat at the dock while his sedan still coughed down the block. Emma needed $800 every month because the podcast would break through any day now. Add in phone plans, add in gift cards for holidays, add in card add-ons for convenience that somehow never came off. When I added all the total hovers between $360,000 and $380,000 over that period. That is not a complaint. That is a ledger. I kept a spreadsheet because that is who I am. I named it family support because I like labels that do not lie. Each line item is a little scene, a rushed call, a sigh, a promise that this is the last time, a joke about me being the walking ATM, a thank you text with a heart that was typed so fast it felt like muscle memory. Looking back now, I can see the golden child and scapegoat roles like costumes we were handed as kids. Emma glowed and floated. I steadied and fixed. When she broke something, the family called it creativity. When I repaired it, the family called it love. Both can be true. Only one of them cost $12,000 a month. There were small red flags that I tripped over and then pretended were confetti. I once removed my card as an authorized user from a relative account. It reappeared a week later. They said I had typed it into their phone by mistake. Nobody types 16 digits by mistake. I laughed anyway. I wanted it to be funny. Another time, a Cash App request arrived at midnight with the caption, "Please do not be mad." I sent the money and then stared at the ceiling. The ceiling did not blink. My parents played their part with the kind of persuasion that feels like love. When I told them I might sell the Bedford house after the divorce, my mother took my hands in both of hers and said, "Every family needs a home base." She said traditions matter. She said a house like that gathers a family back together when life scatters us. She did not mention property taxes. She did not mention that I was also carrying a mortgage on a Manhattan condo. She did not have to. I heard the music and I knew the steps. I kept both homes. I told myself it was my choice because it was. Choice feels different when other people quietly script the scene. This is important. There were two separate events on the horizon even back then. The small Friday family dinner at my house, which would turn out to be the night I pressed record without meaning to. And weeks later, the engagement bash they wanted to stage on the same lawn with vendors and a real budget. Two events, two different nights. I am saying that out loud, so there is no confusion when we get to the driveway. The exploitation pattern was not only about cash, it was also about identity and access. My mother offered often to handle paperwork for me because I was busy. She would say, "Let me fill out the annoying forms. Let me call the vendor. Let me open the account and you can add your card later." It sounded like care. Looking back now, it reads like rehearsal for a bigger step. I also need to say this because it will matter when we talk about the car on the flatbed. I co-signed on a luxury SUV that Emma drove. It was my choice at the time. I wanted her to be safe and to look successful and to feel like life was opening for her. The payments came through my accounts because my credit was cleaner and the interest rate was better. The vehicle was garaged at an address that was not mine. That is common in families. It is also a detail lenders care about when contracts are reviewed. File that away. Later, when I cancel autopay on purpose, the next installment will lapse, and that missed payment plus the address issue becomes the legal basis for what happens in the driveway. Looking back now, I can hear the way entitlement sharpened around the edges. Aunt Carol started using phrases like, "You barely notice it." Uncle Mike would say, "You work with brands that spend more on a brunch than this." Emma would text, "I hate having to ask you," and then ask me anyway. My mother would sigh and tell me how proud my grandmother would be to see me help the family. The word help began to feel like a lever. I had two people keeping me anchored to reality. Callie, who waters plants and people, she would ask simple questions that felt like oxygen. "Do you want to do this? Does this make you feel loved? Does the love go both ways?" And Evan, my colleague who wears data like a second skin, he would say, "What do the numbers say?" He would remind me that in work and in life we reward what we tolerate. Neither of them told me what to do. They gave me back my thinking. Breadcrumb for later. I started forwarding key messages to a private email folder labeled proof. Not out of paranoia, out of practice. I run big campaigns. When things go sideways, the only thing that saves budget and relationships is clean documentation. I saved screenshots of the family group chat when the jokes tilted from affectionate to sharp. I saved receipts that did not match the stories I had been told. I saved note-to-self voice memos after calls with my mother, so I would remember what I had agreed to and why. There is something tender and terrible about being the responsible child. People assume your strength is endless. They mistake quiet for consent. They mistake competence for capacity. If you are listening and nodding, I see you too. I was not planning a dramatic confrontation. I was planning a life where the people I love could lean without breaking me. I wanted to be generous and still have a spine. I wanted to keep the Bedford house and also keep my peace. I wanted holidays without invoices attached. I wanted Emma to succeed on her own terms. I wanted my mother to love me without asking for my login. Looking back now, I can see exactly when wanting turned into deciding. It was the week before the small Friday family dinner. My bank app pinged with a new card add-on that I had not requested. I removed it. It reappeared. I removed it again and texted a polite boundary. Please ask before adding anything to my accounts. The reply came back with a heart and a joke about convenience. I felt a small click inside me, like a door that had been open for years finally swinging shut. This is your last breadcrumb before we step into the next part. I had 3 threads already in my hand, and I did not fully know it. The ledger that proved the sacrifice, the screenshots that revealed how they talked about me when I was not in the room, the accounts and access that kept reappearing like weeds. Tie those threads to the 2 separate events ahead, the small Friday family dinner, the later engagement bash, and you will see why the driveway felt less like a scene and more like a verdict. The small Friday family dinner was supposed to be easy. Soup, a roast, a simple toast. I was in the mudroom setting down a stack of folded dish towels when I heard the glass tap. I did not rush. I leaned against the doorway. I let the room talk. Here is to stupid relatives with money, my mother said, voice light like the punchline wore pearls. Laughter rose and clinked against the chandelier. And here is to Madison, because the engagement bash will be effortless with her help. She is too kind to say no. My chest went quiet. Not cold, quiet. The kind of quiet a stage gets before the lights change. Breadcrumb 1. My phone was already in my pocket from an earlier rehearsal. The voice memo app was open. I tapped record. I did not walk in. I let the truth finish its sentence. The details spilled fast. Someone joked that the caterer was $22,000 but worth every bite. Someone else said the band was around $10,000 and would nail Emma's favorite song. Decor was $8,000 because love needed a backdrop. Cake and valet would sit around $5,000 together. The totals hovered. I did not do the math out loud. My hand did it on the inside of my arm like a reflex. Then my mother added the thing that took my breath. Do not worry, she said. I already handled the annoying part. I opened a business line with Madison's information so vendors can book and she can settle later. Her email makes things easier with approvals. The laughter turned into relief. It was the relief of people who think the road is paved. I stepped outside and let the cold air slap me awake. Gravel under my flats, a sky so clear it felt like a dare. I saved the recording. I emailed it to myself. Redundancy keeps reality honest. I texted 2 people. Callie, Evan. I typed only this: I think there is a problem. Callie replied with a heart and a question. Do you want me to come by? Evan replied with a sentence that steadied me. Save everything. We will sort the sequence. Breadcrumb 2 arrived the next morning with coffee. I sat at the kitchen island and opened the family group chat. I typed my name into the search bar. What showed up was 6 months of small cuts. Jokes about my condo fees as if they were a personality trait. The phrase walking ATM, sometimes with a laughing emoji, sometimes naked and mean. Threads where plans for the engagement bash were sketched on my lawn like it was a public park. I took screenshots. I forwarded them to a folder I had created the night before called Proof. That name felt melodramatic when I typed it. It felt obvious when I filled it. I scrolled further back. There were messages from my mother saying, let me handle the forms, you are busy. There were messages from Emma sending Pinterest boards for florals and saying, we can keep it cheap by doing it at your place. There were messages from Aunt Carol asking if the decorator would need a deposit and could I just put it on my card and we would square up later. Later is a word that often means never when you are the responsible one. Breadcrumb 3 announced itself that afternoon as a bank alert. A new merchant account had been linked. A tiny test charge had posted. I called the bank and let the hold music try to soothe a feeling that did not want soothing. The representative asked to confirm the social security number on the application. She read mine. She asked to confirm the contact email. She read my mother's. I wrote each word down slow and dark like I was carving into the page. I filed a fraud ticket. I asked for the application details in writing. I asked them to flag the account and the charge. I walked room to room at the Bedford house because movement helps me think. Kitchen. Dining room. The little sunroom that everyone photographs because the light forgives. In the mirror by the stairs, I saw the look I get before a big presentation. My face goes still, my eyes sharpen. I start to see the order inside the chaos. This is important. I still trusted my mother in 1,000 small ways. That is how betrayal works. It arrives wearing a familiar jacket. My mother often handled paperwork for me with good intentions. She has held my life together with tape in past emergencies. That history is why I did not want to believe what the bank had just confirmed. Trusted family member complicity does not look like a villain monologue. It looks like convenience. It sounds like I will take this off your plate. I packed an overnight bag and drove back to Manhattan. I needed a desk, a charger, and a door that closed. I printed the bank log. I clipped the audio. I dragged every screenshot into one folder like beads on a wire. I opened a blank document and wrote a timeline with dates and times and names. Friday family dinner, 6-minute recording, morning screenshots, afternoon bank alert. I added a column for actions taken and a column for next steps. It looked like work because it was. I called Callie. I did not cry. I told her what I heard, what I captured, and what the bank said. She took a beat and then asked 2 questions that matter. What do you want the outcome to be? What will keep you safe? I said I wanted the truth in daylight. I said I wanted the engagement bash off my lawn unless I chose it. I said I wanted my name and credit out of places I did not put them. She said, good. Then she said this, do not go to war on text. Prepare. You are better at preparation than anyone I know. I called Evan and walked him through the timeline. He asked to see the screenshots and the bank notice. He did not tell me how to feel. He highlighted a pattern I knew but needed to hear. The asks escalate when you do not say no. The minute you put a boundary in writing the story, you are in changes. He said there is a difference between a family favor and a paper trail. He said you have a paper trail now, did it? That weekend, minor confirmations stacked up. A vendor sent a friendly welcome email to the address my mother had used for me. A cousin accidentally replied all to a thread about hair and makeup schedules at my house. A friend of Trevor's DM'd me on social asking about parking for the event. I replied to none of it. I forwarded everything to the proof folder and to a new email address I had created for legal matters. It was the first time I had used the word legal in connection with my family. It tasted like metal. It felt like a seatbelt. This is where suspicion became certainty. Not because of one big reveal, but because the data points stopped arguing with each other. The audio confirmed the attitude. The screenshots confirmed the plan. The bank alert confirmed the method. And the messages confirmed the timeline. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a system. I also found buried in the group chat a breakdown of the engagement bash budget someone had typed like a grocery list. $22,000 for catering, $10,000 for a band, $8,000 for decor, $5,000 for cake and valet. A line labeled miscellaneous with 3 zeros and a shrug emoji. There was a note that said, Madison will handle venue and payments. Seeing my name next to the word handle is the moment my stomach stopped pretending it was fine. I did not confront anyone that day. I set a few discrete gears in motion. I placed credit freezes with all 3 bureaus so no new accounts could bloom in my name. I set up a call with an attorney who handles identity issues. I started a draft of a cease and desist tied to use of my property and my information. I made a list of every account where a relative was an authorized user and marked it for removal. I listed the vendors mentioned and prepared short, clear emails stating that I was not the client. And I wrote one more note to myself in the timeline. 2 separate events. Friday family dinner already happened. Engagement bash is weeks away. Prepare the driveway, not a scene. Before I shut my laptop, I looked at one more thing I had been avoiding. The car. The luxury SUV my sister drove with my name on the paperwork. I opened the lender portal, checked the terms, and bookmarked the page that explained what constituted a breach. I did not touch anything yet. I only read. I only understood. I wrote a single sentence in the margin. If I stop the autopay before the due date, the next installment will miss. And the combination of a missed payment and the vehicle kept at a non-borrower address activates the clause they care about. It was not a threat. It was a fact I needed to hold. I closed the computer and sat on the floor because couches felt too comfortable for the truth. I said out loud what had happened. They toasted me as a resource. They planned a party with my name on the bill. They used my information like a tool. They joked about me in a room I did not enter. And I recorded it. And I saved it. And I am going to act on it. One last breadcrumb before we move on. I printed the timeline, the budget screenshot, and the voice memo transcript and slid them into a manila folder. On the tab, I wrote the word driveway. Not because I wanted a showdown, but because I knew where clarity would have to live. Outside, in daylight, with gravel making that sound under my shoes. Surface first, then the deeper current, then the map that shows how long the river has been cutting the stone. Surface betrayal is simple to describe. There was a real party plan, not a fantasy. A caterer quoted at $22,000. A band around $10,000. Decor at $8,000 because love needed a backdrop. Cake and valet together near $5,000. A shrug line called miscellaneous with 3 zeros. And my name handwritten next to the word handle. I was not invited to contribute. I was assigned to absorb. That is not love. That is an invoice wearing lipstick. Now the deeper conspiracy. It had faces and tones I knew better than my own reflection. My mother speaking in her soft helper voice saying she would handle tedious forms for me because I was busy sliding my information into an application like it was a spare napkin. Emma floating on certainty sending Pinterest boards and saying, "We can keep it cheap by doing it at your place," as if my house were a public park with better lighting. Aunt Carol already asking about deposits and could I place one with my card and we would settle later. Uncle Mike cheering in the group chat because a free venue meant the band budget could go bigger. Trevor offering vendor names like a concierge who does not plan to tip. None of them use the word take, they use the word help. Help is a beautiful word when it points both directions. Ours only pointed at me. Pattern recognition is where the air turned crisp. I laid the ledger beside the screenshots beside the bank notice. 3 columns. 3 years, 3 habits. The asks climb when the answer is always yes. The jokes sharpen when you start to wobble. Access expands until your name becomes a key ring in other people's pockets. Looking back now, I could see that this did not begin with a party. It began the first time I paid an $800 favor and called it family. It grew each time I removed an authorized user and they reappeared as if by magic. It calcified when my mother realized vendors responded faster to my email than to hers. It was not an accident. It was a system. And I had been the unpaid operator. This is important. Awakening is not rage, it is clarity. It is the heat going out of your cheeks and into your spine. I stood in my Manhattan kitchen with printouts like puzzle pieces and felt the switch flip. I did not become cruel, I became precise. I needed a place to think where the story started. I drove back to Bedford the next morning alone early before texts and noise and the daily rehearsal of pretending we were fine. The sun was bright without being kind. Dew turned the lawn into a field of small mirrors. The stone path remembered every step I had ever taken as a daughter who said yes. I unlocked the front door, and the house exhaled like it knew what I was about to do. The sensory moment stamped itself into me. The fridge hummed low. Dust glinted lazy in a square of light. My coffee steamed in my hand like a small weather system. I set the mug down and listened to the quiet until I could hear my own mind again. Gravel underfoot when I stepped outside. The sign I had not hung yet leaning against the porch bench, no trespassing. 3 words that felt like a sentence and a prayer. I walked the property the way you walk a problem when you are done letting it ride you. The old oak near the drive, the patch by the hydrangeas where people always try to take photos. The strip of grass where a band would set up and pretend that a backyard is a stage. I pictured tables. I pictured candles. I pictured laughter landing on the stone like it owned the place. And I pictured my name on someone else's invoice. My breath went shallow. Then it evened out. The sky was still blue. It did not care. There was a strange freedom in that. Back inside, I laid out the breadcrumbs so they finally touched. The 6-minute voice memo from the small Friday family dinner labeled and time-stamped. The screenshots sorted by topic like a brand study. The bank alert and the application details that read my numbers back to me in a stranger's font. I highlighted names only once. I underlined nothing. I did not need to convince myself. I only needed to see it all at the same time. That is when the map appeared. Not a list of slights, a sequence. Ask, access, assignment. That is the loop. Ask for a small thing to keep the channel warm. Gain or maintain access to accounts and identity because you are busy and they are helpful. Assign the next big thing to the person who has never dropped a ball. Repeat until the person who has never dropped a ball forgets that balls can also be put down on purpose. I said it out loud to the empty kitchen and to the little girl I used to be. This is over. Not the love, the loop. This next sentence will matter later. I took out the manila folder I had labeled driveway and I added 2 pages. The first was a 1-page budget summary printed from the group chat that made the engagement bash feel inevitable. The second was a short, clean statement I wrote in plain language. I am not the client for any event at my home. My name and accounts may not be used without my explicit written consent. Any attempt to enter or set up on the property without permission will be considered trespass and referred to council. I slid the statement into the front sleeve where someone could read it in a single glance. Not because I planned to waive it, because clarity is an act of care even when it sounds like a door closing. But what they did not know was that the clarity extended past paper. It moved into dates, into contracts, into the parts of this story that hinge on time. The engagement bash was weeks away. That gave me a window long enough to make lawful choices that would have lawful effects later. I did not need a scene. I needed a clock that would ring when it should. I walked to the garage and looked at the empty bay where the luxury SUV sometimes slept when Emma remembered that garages exist. I opened the lender app on my phone and read the terms again. I read the section about missed payments. I read the section about garaging addresses and material misrepresentation. I closed the app without tapping anything. I wrote the due date on a sticky note and tucked it inside the driveway folder. I am not a villain. I am an adult reading a contract that has my name on it. I am allowed to stop paying for a thing I no longer choose to subsidize. And when a payment misses and the car lives at an address that is not mine, the lender does what lenders do. That is not a tantrum. That is a clause. I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall and let the entire story run through me in one breath. The Friday dinner where they toasted to stupid relatives with money. The group chat where my nickname wore out its welcome. The application where my identity became a convenience. The plan to host an engagement bash on my lawn with my credit. The way my mother's helpful voice harmonized with my guilt. The way Emma's certainty assumed I was a venue. The way I kept saying yes because my love was louder than my logic. And now finally the way my logic had caught up. This is where I usually say I will get to that because it keeps people watching. But I want to be honest in a different way. I am not teasing you, I am building a scaffold. In the next part, I start making calls. I gather allies. I file the reports. I send the emails. I cancel an autopay so that the next installment will miss on schedule, creating the exact legal condition the contract describes. I set a process in motion with timelines that do not care about feelings, and I do all of it without raising my voice because volume has never been my strength. Precision is. Before I left the house, I did one small symbolic thing. I took the banner that said "Love from the Pantry" where someone had stashed it for the future, and I laid it flat on the dining table. I smoothed the creases with my palm. Then I put it back in the plastic tub and labeled the lid with a date. Not the party date. The date I learned that love without boundaries becomes a leash you hand to whoever reaches for it. It is a beautiful banner. It just does not belong on my lawn unless I choose it. As I locked the front door and stepped onto the porch, the gravel made that steady, loyal sound under my shoes. The sky kept doing what skies do. The house watched me like a friend who trusts you to make the next right call. I got in my car, I turned the key, and I drove toward the part of the story where the map becomes motion. I moved fast and stayed calm. No scenes, only steps. Goal, end the loop, protect my name, protect my home. Evidence first. I printed the 6-minute recording. I printed the group chat screenshots. I printed the bank alert and the application details. I built one clean timeline with dates, times, and actions. Attorney. I met counsel, slid the folder across the table, and got 3 directives. File an identity theft report, freeze all credit, send a cease and desist covering my property and my information. We drafted the letter that morning. Simple language, no insults, only facts and consequences. Banks and bureaus. I called the fraud line and opened a ticket. I placed freezes with all 3 credit bureaus. I added fraud alerts. I requested new card numbers. I removed every authorized user tied to family. I shut off every Cash App connection and disabled instant transfers. I ended every automatic monthly gift. 40% out would no longer be my default. Vendors. I emailed the caterer, the band, the decorator, and valet. Subject line, not your client. I stated that any booking using my name or credit was unauthorized. I CC'd counsel. I wished them well. Some replied and canceled. Some did not see the message in time. That was fine. Documentation beats drama. Property. I boxed every decoration and labeled every tub. I changed the smart locks. I positioned ring cameras to cover the gate and the drive. I mounted a sign by the walk. No trespassing. I called the local non-emergency line and asked them to log a potential trespass on the date of the larger event. I tested the outdoor speakers for a clear phone call if I needed one. Repo groundwork. I opened the lender portal for the luxury SUV. I canceled autopay before the due date. The next installment would miss as the contract described. The garaging address did not match mine. My co-owner status and the missed payment together created a clear breach. I notified the lender that I no longer had possession and would not cure future payments. They opened a recovery window that overlapped the week of the planned bash. Professional boundary. I posted on LinkedIn without names. Effective immediately, I am ending all personal sponsorships and informal financial support. Any use of my name or accounts without written consent will be reported. Boundaries protect relationships. Thank you. I turned off comments. I did not answer messages. Allies. I sent Callie the plan so she could check me for heat. I sent Evan the timeline so he could check me for holes. Both replied with one word, solid. And then I waited. Paper in order, locks changed, cameras up, clock set. The engagement bash day arrived under a bright, indifferent sky. Vendors came first. I met the early caterer at the gate. I handed over tubs of decor and cold water, plus a copy of the cease and desist. They left puzzled but polite. A second vendor slowed saw the paperwork exchange and kept driving. The in-laws arrived. Kind faces, confused smiles. I asked them to wait a moment so everyone could hear the same facts. They agreed. My mother and Emma walked up the drive. Behind them came Aunt Carol, Uncle Mike, and cousins with phones ready for entrance videos. A process server stepped out of his car. He confirmed names and handed packets to my mother and to Emma. He also served Trevor. No drama, only paper. I tapped my phone and put the non-emergency line on speaker for a brief confirmation. This is Madison. Please note the trespass log at my address. Thank you. I ended the call, my voice carried on the porch speakers, calm, audible. I read 3 proofs. First, the transcript of the toast from the small Friday family dinner. The line about stupid relatives with money. The aside about opening a business line with my information. Second, a single group chat screenshot with the phrase, walking ATM. No pile on? 1 page was enough. Third, the bank alert confirming the merchant account and the contact email that was not mine. I stated that reports were filed and counsel was engaged. Then I ended it. The conversation is over. Someone tried to pass me. I stepped aside and pointed to the sign, no trespassing. The ring cameras watched without blinking. The tow truck entered the cul-de-sac inside the recovery window. The driver asked for keys to the luxury SUV. Emma argued. The driver showed the order and the missed payment notice, co-owner request, address mismatch. He loaded the car. It felt like punctuation, not revenge. Trevor spoke about working it out. I said emails were sent and not honored. His parents told him softly that the wedding should be delayed until respect and logistics aligned. Their words, not mine. By sunset, the driveway was empty. My mother left her packet on her car hood like it might stain the seats. Emma texted, "You are dead to me." I did not reply. Counsel handled all messages after that. Within days, the LinkedIn boundary post did what boundaries do. It clarified. People connected dots without my help. Workplace rumors found their own oxygen. I did not feed them. I slept. For the first time in weeks I slept. Time jump, a few months. The Bedford estate is now a permitted short-term rental with a property manager and a cleaning crew. The calendar covers taxes, maintenance, and then some. The house feels lighter, so do I. Callie and Evan are my chosen family. We share dinners without invoices attached. We laugh in rooms that are quiet on purpose. I am not performing competence for people who mistake it for endless capacity. I set aside $25,000 in a quiet fund for my niece, Dada. If she ever needs a semester or an exit, it is there. No announcements, no strings, the innocent get a door. There is no reconciliation. There are courteous emails through counsel when required. There is distance. There is peace. Here is the lesson. Love without boundaries becomes a leash you hand to anyone who reaches for it. Help is only love when it points both ways. Documentation is not cold. It is care for the truth. Have you ever chosen peace over being liked even by family? Tell me where you are watching from and what that choice looked like. If you want more true stories told calmly with receipts and a real ending, subscribe. I post every week. And to answer the first line of this story, by a few weeks after that small Friday dinner, the party plan was gone, the car was gone, and the story about me had changed. I am not the family wallet. I am the account holder. I decide when it closes.